The Oracl Network. Look deeper.
We have an active shooter. We have an active shooter inside the warehouse.
Welcome to Active Shooter, a podcast that covers the whys, the hows, and the aftermath of active shooter and mass casualty events.
They have an active shooter in the building. A second call says they are being attacked.
I've been shot. 1692 means we got shots fired. 4:15 a.m. Route 291. Sounded like an automatic firearm.
Active shooter, reports of an active shooter,
mass casualty incidents.
Thank you for listening.
You are listening to Active Shooter, a podcast that may contain adult themes, explicit language, and graphic depictions of violence. Portions of this show may be traumatic for those under 18. Listener discretion is advised.
Good morning, everyone. We're coming on the air with breaking news. A school shooting with reports of multiple fatalities, this time in Santa Fe, Texas. It's outside Galveston. A suspect is in custody after opening fire this morning at the high school against Santa Fe. It's a developing story. We're getting details coming in.
Hero. What is the first thing you think of when you hear the word hero? Maybe you think of a superhero, such as Batman or Superman. Maybe you think of a first responder, firefighter, or a police officer. You probably don't think of a 15-year-old student in high school. But that is exactly what Christian Garcia was on May 18th, 2018, at Santa Fe High School, when a classmate opened fire during his morning art class. Christian selflessly sacrificed his body and held a closet door closed. Many of his classmates were hiding in the closet in an effort to escape the deranged gunman. The gunman shot through the door, striking Christian in the chest, killing him. Due to Christian's heroic actions, many lives were saved. However, Christian, 7 of his classmates, and 2 teachers lost their lives that morning, while another 13 were injured. Active Shooter, the podcast, is a High Five Holly production, and I'm your host, JT. If you've listened to our prior episodes, you know that the Active Shooter podcast team has taken the No Notoriety pledge, and we will not be sharing the real name of the shooters that we cover. We will be giving the shooters a pseudonym and refer to them by that name throughout the episode. This will help in clearing up any confusion in the story while remaining true to our pledge and not naming the shooter by their actual name. In today's episode, we will be referring to the shooter as Leon. It was early in the morning on May 18th, 2018. The Santa Fe High School students were just beginning their first-hour classes, knowing that their weekend was near, and they only had a couple weeks of school left before summer vacation. Around 7:30 a.m., 17-year-old Leon entered the high school and made his way towards the art complex of the school. The art complex consisted of 4 rooms connected with hallways. Around 7:32 a.m., Leon began firing into one of the classrooms. Around the same time, a 911 call was made.
Shots fired. More shots fired. Additional shots fired. They're having a shooting at the high school. Have an officer down. Shooter not in custody. He's actively shooting. He's in the art room. We got shots fired right now, guys. Officer down. See his coverage on the outside. We believe he's barricaded inside.
A student immediately pulled the fire alarm to alert students that there was an emergency and to leave the building immediately. Around 500 students started running from the school to get as far away as possible. Using a 12-gauge Remington 870 shotgun and a Rossi 38 caliber snub-nose revolver, Leon started randomly shooting his classmates. Students immediately went into flight mode and started to hide. Some hid under desks. Others fled the classrooms to safety, while others fled to closets and barricaded themselves inside. There were some students that tried to leave through a back door that was in one of the art rooms, leading outdoors into a courtyard. However, that door was locked.
When I first heard the shots, I thought it was just like fire, because like the fire drill went off. I thought it was like the fire popping or something.
Well, I thought maybe it was just like, popping of something, like an explosion or something. So I was like, whatever. But then when I heard the next 4 shots, I was like, no, it's not an explosion. That's, gunshot.
Hiding in closets didn't seem to deter Leon from shooting, as he continued to aim and fire at the students through the closet doors. As mentioned in the beginning of this episode, some students, including Christian, used their bodies to hold the door closed so the shooter couldn't enter. When Leon left one of the classrooms for a short time, a couple students came out of hiding in an attempt to barricade the classroom door, trying to prevent the gunman from re-entering. Seemingly, out of nowhere, Leon jumped back in front of the door and shouted, "Surprise!" at the students before finally shooting them. A wounded student later reported that Leon was singing "Another One Bites the Dust" to himself as he walked around, coldly taking the lives of others.
He was playing music, making jokes while he was doing it, had like slogans, like rhymes and stuff. Like every time he'd kill someone, he'd say, "Another one bites the dust."
Officer John Barnes, a school resource officer, was stationed at the school and immediately responded to the call of shots fired. When Officer Barnes arrived at the massacre, he immediately exchanged gunfire with Leon. Both Leon and Officer Barnes were injured in the gunfire. After being shot, Leon surrendered at 8:02 a.m. From the time he started shooting until the time that police had him in custody was around 25 minutes. Officer Barnes suffered a gunshot wound to his arm and had to have surgery. There was damage done to the major blood vessel around his elbow, as well as the bone.
I looked up between the legs of a chair and he locked eyes with me. I did make eye contact with him, and he had a face of rage. He was mad. Why, I don't know. He first opened fire with a shotgun in which he shot one of my other friends in the head, and her body fell down not too far away from where I was under the table. That is when he turned like this and opened fire with the revolver. And students were running around screaming. One kid flipped a table up.
As officers responded to the scene, they all saw the same thing: utter chaos. Despite the mayhem, police officers responded exactly how they were trained. There was blood all over the place, and shrapnel from walls, desks, glass, and chairs was everywhere. There were students who risked their lives and came out of hiding to administer first aid to the injured students. Just as quickly as the shooting had begun, parents started showing up at the school to check on their children. While kids were in hiding, they were sending text messages to their parents and other loved ones, letting them know that the shooter had wreaked havoc at their school. Police didn't have any immediate information for loved ones at the school and directed them to the Alamo Gym, where a family reunification center was set up. Here, parents and children were reunited with each other. A Molotov cocktail and homemade explosive devices were found at the school, in a vehicle, in the parking lot, and on the school campus. CO2 canisters wrapped in duct tape were found in Leon's home, and some of the bombs were functional. A pressure cooker was also found at the school with an alarm clock and nails inside. However, the pressure cooker had no explosive material inside it.
There have been explosive devices found in the high school and surrounding areas adjacent to the high school. Because of the threat of these explosive items, community members should be on the lookout for any suspicious items and anything that looks out of place. Do not touch any items that look out of place and immediately call 911 so that the appropriate authorities can respond.
Leon took the lives of 10 people, 8 students and 2 teachers. In addition, he injured 13. As stated in the beginning of this episode, Christian Riley Garcia was a 15-year-old student who was born in Baytown, Texas. He liked football, basketball, music, hunting, and fishing. Christian was always happy and was a very sweet young man. He had dreams of enlisting in the military when he was old enough, and he had a passion to help people.
He was holding a door shut so that he could protect other students that were there, and he lost his life when a gunshot came through the door, took his life. But in the sacrifice of his own life, others were allowed to escape and had some time to get away. And we know there are several lives lost, but his story is a story of, I believe, true heroism, as he gave himself so that others would have a chance.
Chris Stone was 17 years old, and he too risked his life to save fellow classmates by using his body to prevent the shooter from entering a closet where they were hiding. He played football on the Santa Fe High School junior varsity team and was described as being selfless and gentle. He was always the life of the party, whether he was dancing or singing, and he loved to make others laugh. Sabika Sheikh was an 18-year-old exchange student from Pakistan. She had dreams of becoming a diplomat. In Pakistan, her father turned on the evening news and saw a story about the shooting. He immediately began to try and contact Sabika, but he couldn't reach her. The exchange program she was part of delivered the heartbreaking news to Sabika's family. She would have been home in just a few weeks as the school year was ending. Hundreds of people attended her funeral in Pakistan.
She wanted to be a businesswoman, and she says she wanted to impact the world, and I think she has done that.
Angelique Ramirez was a 15-year-old student who was born in Ponca City, Oklahoma. She was very creative and was always willing to try out a new hairstyle. Angelique was an amazing sister and loved her brother. She was a staple in her family as being a wonderful caregiver. She was also a member of the Dayspring Church. Shayna Fisher was 16 years old when she lost her life. It is believed that Shayna was targeted in the attack because a few months prior, Leon made several advances towards her, which she rejected. Leon was Shayna's best friend's ex-boyfriend. She was a very talented artist and enjoyed doing her makeup and dressing up for the annual Renaissance Festival. She was passionate about video games, anime, and her dog. While Shayna was shy, she was known as a very sweet person.
And I think that she knew beforehand because this guy kept harassing her about wanting to be with her, like, in a relationship.
Kimberly Jessica Vaughn was 14 years old and a senior-level Girl Scout. She was born on August 12, 2003 in San Diego, California. Kimberly loved going to the library to read the Harry Potter books. She also had a love for cats. Aaron Kyle McLeod, who went by Kyle, was 15 years old and was born on February 20th, 2003. Kyle always looked on the bright side of things. You would never see him without a smile, and he'd be spending time hanging out with his friends. Kyle was also a movie buff. 2 of his favorite pastimes were playing tennis, as well as playing video games. Jared Black turned 17 years old just 2 days before the shooting. He was supposed to be having a birthday party with his friends that weekend, and it was going to be a pool party. Instead, his family had to plan a funeral. Jared had 4 brothers and 1 sister. He loved to draw and read comic books. He also enjoyed playing video games, as well as wrestling. Jared was born in Eugene, Oregon, and found joy in everything. Art was his favorite class, which is where, unfortunately, he ultimately lost his life. Cynthia Tisdale was at the high school as a substitute teacher. She was 63 years old when her life was cut short. Cynthia loved teaching and had a passion for it. She had been married to her husband for 46 years. A few years prior, her husband became chronically ill, and Cynthia became his full-time caretaker. She picked